Welcome back to Ghostasian, where we retell the most terrifying, spine-chilling stories from every corner of the planet. Tonight, turn off your lights because you're about to hear the legend of the Potianak, the most infamous ghost of Malaysia and Indonesia. People across Southeast Asia believe that the Potianak is not just a myth, but the restless spirit of a woman who died while pregnant or during childbirth, consumed by unbearable grief and vengeance. Her death was anything but peaceful. When her soul left her body, it did not ascend to the light. Instead, it became a vengeful ghost, beautiful and alluring, yet harboring deadly horror within. In Malaysia, she is called Pontianak. In Indonesia, she is known as Kuntilanak. And in Singapore, the mere sound of a shrill, high-pitched laugh in the middle of the night is enough for people to whisper, "She's near." Legends describe Pontianak as a woman dressed in white, with long hair covering her face, pale wax-like skin, and hollow black eyes. She carries a sweet scent of jasmine, a deadly omen that foretells her presence. If you smell a faint trace of jasmine, it means she's still far away. But if the scent grows stronger, suffocatingly sweet, she's standing right behind you. The Pontianak embodies the agony of broken motherhood, a tragic spirit of women betrayed, abandoned, or wronged in death while carrying life within them. One of the oldest tales tells of a young pregnant woman living in a village near the Sungai Petani River. Her husband had left her, alone in despair. On a full moon night, as labor pains came and no one came to help, she died in agony, and her unborn child perished inside her womb. She was buried at the edge of the forest, where the wind whispered through rows of palm trees and owls cried every night. But only days later, men from the village began disappearing. Those who passed through the forest spoke of hearing a woman's soft laughter, mingled with the wailing of an infant in the dark. One man who survived recounted with trembling voice, "I saw a young woman, long hair, so beautiful I couldn't look away. She stood beneath a banana tree, smiling. I heard her call my name and then everything went black." By morning they found him unconscious, body cold as ice, with 2 deep nail marks on his neck, as if strangled by an unseen hand. Since then, the Pontianak has forever been tied to banana trees in local belief. People say she hides inside their trunks during the day, only emerging at night, especially under a full moon. The village elders always warn their children, "When you pass a banana tree at night, never look up. If you hear a woman's laughter, do not answer. If you smell jasmine, run and don't look back. Because if you do, she will smile and tear your heart out with her sharp nails." For centuries, the image of Pontianak has haunted the lives of Malaysians and Indonesians, not just as folklore, but through eerie incidents recorded by villagers and even police. In Perak in 1979, dozens of people claimed to have seen a woman in white with long hair floating above the palm fields. Police investigated but found no trace, only the lingering scent of jasmine, and several chickens found dead, their bodies hollowed out. In many villages, people place iron nails as talismans, believing iron can trap the Pontianak spirit. Those possessed by her can be saved by driving an iron nail into the crown of her head or the back of her neck, turning her temporarily back into a normal woman. But if that nail is ever removed, she returns, furious beyond imagination. And now, the story you are about to hear took place in 1996, in a small village near Johor Bahru, Malaysia. A group of young friends accidentally disturbed the place where the Pontianak was once buried, and what they awakened plunged their entire village into months of nightmares. This true story was told by Amina, the sole survivor. In 1996, Kampung Seri Padi, a quiet village on the outskirts of Johor Bahru, was peaceful and reclusive. Most villagers grew palms and coconuts, and no one ever left their homes after 8 p.m. because everyone knew behind the village lay an ancient banana grove, where, long ago, a pregnant woman had been buried with no one to claim her body. They called that place Lading Potianak, the field of the ghost. Amina, who was only 17 at the time, recalled that it was a full moon night. The air was stiflingly hot and heavy. She and her 3 friends, Faris, Izan, and Hakim, decided to go to the edge of the forest to film a ghost prank video to submit to a local TV show as part of a popular trend back then. No one thought about the consequences. At that time, I didn't think much of it, Amina said. We just wanted to see if the legend was real. We never imagined she was still there. When the group reached the forest's edge, a sudden gust of wind rose, carrying a faint scent of jasmine through the air. Faris turned on his flashlight and swept its beam across the dense banana trees. The group laughed and jokingly called out, "Pontianak, if you're here, come out." There was no reply, only the sound of crickets and rustling leaves. Amina pulled out her phone to record, while Hakim took a small iron talisman from his shirt pocket and joked, "Just in case she likes me." Faris stepped closer to a large banana tree, its trunk old and scarred, as if it had once been slashed and crudely stitched back together. He took out a knife and carved the letter F into the bark, laughing as he said, "Here's proof I was here, so stop spreading ghost stories." The moment he finished speaking, the flashlight went out. Everything was swallowed by darkness. The air turned icy cold, even though it was the middle of summer. Amina said she felt someone standing right behind her, their breath soft and damp, brushing against her neck. Then came the overpowering scent of jasmine, thick, suffocating, almost burning her throat. Faris fumbled with the flashlight, trying to turn it back on. Each time the light flickered, they saw a white shadow dart past, gliding between the trees. Hakim scoffed, "Probably just a cat, don't freak out." But when the light fell upon the banana tree they had just marked, everyone froze. The carved F was bleeding, bright red blood seeping from the bark. Izan trembled and grabbed Amina's hand. "I want to go home, this place isn't right." But Faris took another step forward, trying to shine the light upward. That was when the first sound came, the cry of an infant, faint yet echoing, from inside the tree trunk. Amina screamed. Hakim threw the flashlight, and they all bolted from the forest. All except Faris. Amina turned back and saw him standing motionless, eyes wide, staring up at the treetops. In the moonlight, a woman in a white dress was perched there, her long hair cascading all the way to the ground. The wind whipped her gown, and her face came into view, pale as death, eyes hollow and black, mouth stretched open to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Faris, run!" Amina shouted. But he seemed entranced, took one step forward and collapsed. Hakim ran back to pull him away, but the moment he touched Faris, he recoiled. Faris's skin was ice cold and stiff, his eyes rolled back, and his lips trembled as if trying to speak. 2 deep claw marks oozed blood from his neck. Amina barely heard him whisper, "She's in the tree, she's watching." Then silence. They dragged Faris's body to the forest's edge, and that's when a shrill, piercing laughter echoed behind them. A woman's laugh, high-pitched, blending with the howling wind. The jasmine scent flooded the air again, thick and unbearable. Hakim dropped to his knees and began reciting prayers in Arabic. Amina covered her ears, trembling until she fainted. Izan turned around and saw, clearly, a face peering out from within the banana tree. The next morning, villagers found them unconscious along the forest path. Faris was dead, 5 black finger marks burned into his neck, and the banana tree where they had stood was split open from the inside, as if something had exploded within it. The police ruled Faris's death as cardiac arrest, but the villagers all said, "The Pontianak has awakened." That night, the whole village was filled with the scent of jasmine, though not a single flower bloomed. Dogs howled until dawn, and people heard a woman laughing among the palm trees whenever the moon rose. Amina survived, but from that day on, she never dared to go near a banana tree again. Whenever someone mentioned the name Potianak, she would lower her head and whisper, "When she chooses someone, no one can escape." 3 days after Faris's death, an eerie heaviness settled over the village. Children cried through the night, dogs howled endlessly, and the elders barred their doors as soon as the sun went down. The scent of jasmine returned every night, drifting faintly from the direction of the banana grove, a smell that sent chills down everyone's spine. Amina couldn't sleep. In her dreams, she always saw a woman in a white dress, holding her pregnant belly, stepping out of the darkness. Whenever Amina tried to turn away, the woman would ask, "Why did you call my name?" On the fourth day, the villagers held a funeral for Faris. His body was buried near the forest's edge, close to where his parents once worked their fields. But during the ceremony, a sudden gust of wind swept through, carrying the scent of jasmine across the cemetery. The crowd fell silent. The oldest woman in the village, Zahra, 82 years old, trembled, leaning on her cane and said, "She's back. Hasna's daughter, she hasn't found peace." The name Hasna made everyone freeze. It was a name that had been forbidden to speak for over 20 years. In 1975, in this very village, there lived a young, kind, and beautiful woman named Hasna. She was once engaged to a man named Rahim, but just before their wedding, Rahim left for work in Singapore and never returned. Hasna was pregnant. Abandoned and shunned by the villagers, she lived alone in a small hut by the forest's edge. One stormy night, people heard her screaming for help from within the woods, and then silence. When they went to look, all they found were bloodstains and claw marks along the banana tree trunks. Hasna had vanished. 3 days later, they found her body buried hastily, her belly torn open, and the child she had carried was gone. From that moment on, men in the village began to vanish one after another. Whenever someone walked through the banana grove at night, they heard a woman's giggle and the thick scent of jasmine. The villagers invited an ustaz, an Islamic cleric, to perform a binding ritual, driving a long iron nail into the trunk of the banana tree where Hasna had died. After that ceremony, all the strange phenomena stopped. People thought she had finally found peace. But no one expected Faris to carve into that same tree. Amina felt a chill run through her body when she heard the story. She remembered Faris's cut and the blood seeping from the trunk. She wondered, what if the iron nail rots or is removed? No one could answer. That night she went to see old Zahra. Her house stood at the very edge of the forest, full of the smell of medicinal herbs and dried leaves. The old woman looked at Amina and whispered, "Hasna wasn't wicked. She was not rescued. When Rahim betrayed her, she bore the child alone and died in pain. Blood stained the earth and the grievance soaked into the banana tree. People call Potianak an evil spirit, but in truth, she is just a mother searching for her child." She opened an old wooden box and took out a yellowed photograph. In the picture, Hasna smiled, wearing a white dress, her hand gently resting on her pregnant belly. Amina felt her heart contract. The eyes in that photo were exactly the same as the eyes of the woman in her dream. "If you truly called her name," Zahra said, "she will not stop. When the jasmine blooms, you must run far away." But nobody in the village had time to do that. The next evening, the scent of jasmine returned, stronger than ever. Pure white flowers bloomed all around Faris's grave, though no one had planted them there. In the thin mist, people saw the shape of a woman standing by the grave, long hair covering her face, her white dress billowing. When a villager stepped closer, the figure turned Hasna's face, deathly pale, lips dark red, eyes deep and black. Zahra only had time to cry out, "Don't look into her eyes." Then every light in the village went out. That night, Kampung Seri Damar seemed swallowed by an eerie, icy atmosphere. The moon hung high, tinged with a weak blood-red light, casting a cold glow over the swaying palm fronds. The dogs began to howl in long, drawn-out cries, a portent of misfortune. Amina sat inside her house, her heart pounding, hands clenched tight around her prayer beads. From the distance, the wind whistling through the thatched roof sounded like moaning. Then, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The flapping of wings, rapid and furious, mixed with the metallic tang of blood and the heavy scent of jasmine. A scream tore the night from the far end of the village. It was a man's scream. It echoed and then abruptly stopped. Amina jumped up and ran out onto the veranda, her heart threatening to burst. Far away, she saw flickering torches and people running wildly. "Potianak, Potianak is here," someone shouted hoarsely in the dark. Amina saw a man staggering toward her. Deep claw marks ringed his neck and blood streamed down. He collapsed and choked out in broken words. It's on the coconut tree, long hair, eyes white and wild." Then he slumped, lifeless. Amina backed away, trembling. She looked up and saw something sitting in the top of the coconut tree in front of her house. Long black hair hung like a curtain, swaying in the wind. Between that hair, two cloudy white eyes without pupils glinted under the blood-red moon. "Potianak," she was staring straight at Amina. A smile spread across her face, lips torn open, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. She did not scream or laugh. She only stared with empty, soulless eyes. Then suddenly, whoosh, Potianak vanished from the treetop. The air around went ice cold. Amina looked around and saw nothing, but she heard breathing right behind her. Creak, the back door flew open. A thin, deathly pale hand reached through. The fingernails were long, caked with dried blood. Amina screamed and fell to the floor. She tried to crawl toward the front door, but the oil lamp went out with a snap and the house plunged into darkness. From within the darkness, a whisper floated, soft but bewitching. "You have seen my blood." A white blur streaked by, so fast the eye could not follow. Amina screamed and ran outside. She dashed toward the village shrine where people had gathered. But when she arrived, the sight froze her blood. The shrine's courtyard was chaos. Many men lay sprawled, deep claw wounds tearing their necks. Bobbies cried everywhere. An old woman sat curled up, holding a talisman, trembling. In the center of the courtyard stood Potianak, hair flying crazily in the wind. She was no longer human. Her face was ashen, her eyes rimmed with blood, her body floating as if suspended. A series of shrieks, like blades tearing, issued from her throat. Men with torches shouted, "Burn the incense! Burn the palm leaves! Hurry!" Potianak roared, a high, piercing sound that snuffed the flames. She lunged, drove her claws into the chest of a man reciting prayers, and ripped the soul from his body. The man collapsed, eyes starring, his last syllable still the unfinished Allah. Amina panicked, tears streaming down her face. She realized Potianak was looking at her, that gaze a mixture of hatred and pleading. For a moment, Amina felt as if the creature before her was not purely evil. That look held the unimaginable pain of a mother who had lost her child. Potianak stepped slowly closer, hair trailing on the ground, a trembling hand reaching out as if to beg. Amina, shaking, whispered, "What do you want from me?" Potianak stopped. A drop of blood-red tear fell down her cheek. "My child. They buried my child under the coconut tree." The voice rang inside Amina's head, not as sound, but as a knowing. She understood. That was why Potianak lingered here. Before she could say more, the villagers surged forward with spears and torches, shouting, "Kill it! Drive it to hell!" The Potianak turned her head and screamed, a scream so powerful it shook the heavens and the earth. Fierce winds tore through the village, scattering ashes, snuffing out every flame until darkness swallowed everything. When the faint light of dawn finally broke, the Potianak was gone. Only Amina remained, kneeling beneath the coconut tree, clutching a small bundle wrapped in white cloth inside, a brittle, cold fragment of a child's bone. As the sun rose, mist blanketed Kampong Seri Damar. The air was heavy with the lingering scent of smoke, blood, and jasmine, like a wound that refused to heal. Villagers buried their dead in silence. No one spoke of what they had seen, though fear still lingered in their eyes. Amina stayed beneath the old coconut tree, where she had found the tiny bone wrapped in white. She had not slept all night, trembling, yet filled with sorrow. Last night she had seen the truth. The Potianak was not just a vengeful spirit. She was a mother who had died in despair. Amina gently unwrapped the cloth once more. The small bone carried the scent of damp earth, the smell of years buried beneath the soil. She remembered the whisper that had echoed inside her head. "My child, they buried my child beneath the coconut tree." That voice replayed endlessly, like a curse. Amina stood, shovel in hand. Despite her fear, she knew what she had to do. Nearby, the village chief and the men gathered to banish the spirit, burning charms and scattering salt around the temple. They believed it was the only way to drive the Potianak away. But Amina knew it would only deepen her pain. She began to dig. The earth was cold and soft, with the metallic scent of old blood. Each shovel felt heavier than the last, not from weight, but from fear. When the shovel struck something solid, she stopped. Beneath the soil lay a small wooden box. Amina trembled as she opened it. Inside was a decayed red cloth and a lock of black hair tied with a golden thread. Her breath caught. This was the child. A sudden gust of cold wind swept through, the air filled with the scent of jasmine. The sound of the wind turned into faint sobs, thin, fragile, like a child crying. Amina looked up. Before her stood the Potianak. But this time she wasn't terrifying. No blood, no rage, only stillness and sorrow. The wind brushed her long black hair. Her pale eyes glistened with tears. "You found it," the voice whispered, faint as breath. Amina no longer stepped back. She met the spirit's eyes. I just want to help you rest. What did they do to you?" The Potianak's gaze drifted into the distance. Her voice grew clearer, trembling between sobs. "I was once a wife. One stormy night I gave birth. Blood kept flowing. He feared my death, feared the curse, so he buried the child while it was still breathing, beneath this very tree. When I woke, I searched for my baby. They said I was mad, locked me away, and let me die alone." Tears streamed down Amina's face. She clutched the red cloth in her hands. The Potianak stepped closer, the moonlight casting sorrow across her pale features. "You know," she said softly, "there is no pain greater than hearing your child cry and being unable to hold them." She knelt, placing the lock of hair back into the box. Amina whispered, "Rest now. I'll bury you both together, so neither of you will ever be alone again." Silence fell. Then the Potianak smiled, for the first and last time. She looked toward the horizon, where the light of dawn spilled through the palm trees, and murmured, "Thank you for seeing me as human." A gentle breeze rose. Her hair scattered into the air, dissolving into white mist. The cries, the screams, the smell of blood all faded away. Only the faint scent of jasmine lingered, drifting into the morning light. Amina knelt, buried the wooden box deep into the earth, and whispered a prayer. Above her, black crows flew toward the forest, leaving behind a strange, peaceful silence. From that day on, no one in the village ever saw the Potianak again. But sometimes, on nights of dim moonlight, when the wind passed through the coconut trees, people swore they could hear a lullaby, a mother's voice whispering, "Sleep now, my dear. Sleep." 10 years passed since that night. Kampong Seri Damar had changed, brighter streets, stronger homes, yet villagers still avoided one thing: the white coconut tree at the village center. No one dared to cut it, nor walk near it after sunset. The elders said that every year, on the seventh full moon, if you passed by, you could still hear a lullaby carried by the wind. Amina was old now, her hair streaked with silver, her hands trembling but her eyes still deep and sorrowful. She lived alone in a small house at the edge of the village, no husband, no children. People whispered that she had touched what should not be seen, and no man dared to marry her. But she didn't mind, for she knew in her heart she had done what was right. That night the wind rose again, moonlight shimmered on rooftops. Amina opened her door and looked toward the coconut tree. Strangely, the scent of jasmine returned, the fragrance she hadn't smelled in a decade. Her heart pounded, something inside urged her to walk. The dirt path to the tree was the same as ever, overgrown with grass, untouched by anyone except her. When she arrived, she saw the tree had aged, leaning, its leaves yellow, its trunk weary. She ran her hand over the rough bark, her eyes drifting to the soil below. Where she had buried the wooden box long ago, the ground seemed freshly disturbed. She knelt, touched the soft soil, a chill shot down her spine. Then the wind howled. The palm leaves rattled, sounding like a woman's weeping. Amina turned. In the pale moonlight stood a white figure, just a few steps away. Slender, long black hair, a white dress fluttering softly. There was no mistaking her, the Potianak. But something was different this time. Her face was no longer tormented, it was serene. In her arms, she cradled a small baby wrapped in red cloth. The Potianak looked at Amina and smiled, a gentle, sorrowful smile. Then she nodded softly. Amina began to cry. You found your child." The Potianak said nothing. She placed a white jasmine flower on the ground, then slowly stepped back, fading into the moonlight, the child still in her arms. Silence returned. The wind stopped. The night insects sang again as if nothing had happened. Amina picked up the jasmine flower, bringing it to her nose. The scent was pure, sweet, but beneath it lingered a faint trace of blood and the sadness of farewell. The next morning, villagers found Amina sitting beneath the coconut tree, her eyes closed, a peaceful smile on her lips. In her hand, she held a single white jasmine flower. Since that day, the white coconut tree no longer leaned. It blossomed every July, filling the village with its sweet fragrance. People said the Potianak had finally found peace, and that Amina had gone with her, just as she once promised. But there was something strange. On every full moon night, when the wind whispered through the palms, villagers could still hear a soft lullaby drifting from afar. "Sleep now, my child, mother is here."